Hi, everyone. So I'm Alex Reissig. I'm the co-founder, COO, and head of product at Simplcare, which is a lot of titles right now. But that's because we're a very small team of 3. Smplicare is a healthy aging platform whose mission is to prevent 10,000 falls by 2028. Hold on, I'm just going to pull my notes over here. So I've got them. There we go. Cool. So I built our MVP using Bubble. I am a non-technical co-founder. I built it over the past year. And it's a digital reporting tool that helps folks track and trend healthy aging metrics over time. So over the next 20 minutes, I'll cover some things that I feel like I wish I knew before I started with down the road of Bubble or NoCode and building my own MVP. Cool. So just real quick about me. So like I said, I'm non-technical. So I actually come from a background in healthcare operations. So I worked for a healthcare consulting firm for about 10 years. And I took on building the Bubble app because we needed it. We needed to do it, and I like a challenge, and it felt like something that I could learn. We were also in lockdown, so it felt like I had a lot of time to learn. I would always say, I think when I started this journey, that I have no code experience, both. But it actually turns out that I had worked with no-code tools in the past. I just hadn't considered them to be no-code. So I actually worked with Jira from Atlassian and QuickBase. And I did a lot of customization in those programs, and I didn't really think about it as no-code at the time. And I think for a lot of you, if you think back to kind of old processes and working with different SaaS tools, you probably have a really similar experience. And then the last little caveat is that I built this on Bubble. So I'm kind of Bubble only, but I tried to tailor this talk to be a little bit more about the generic sort of things that I learned. So this is a snippet of my 12-page research document that I made back in January of 2021 when we first undertook this. So it was me trying to understand which no-code tool we should use and whether or not we should use no-code at all to build our MVP. So when I think about no-code tools, I think about template-based no-code tools like Wix or AppSheets. They have a really quick learning curve. You can do things really, really quickly. They're affordable, but there's a little bit of a limited customization. So you're really kind of drag and dropping. You see there's low and no code like Webflow, Airtable, Notion, pretty customizable, but with code. And what I've noticed is that a lot of them are more single issue. So they do one thing really, really well, and you kind of need to stitch them together and integrate them in order to create a full kind of platform based off of what you need, which for some people can be great because they only need to automate or use no code for one thing. And then there's the enterprise platforms like I was talking about Atlassian. They're great for internal processes. They can be a little expensive, and they can be pretty cumbersome to customize. You can kind of hit the roadblocks or the limitations of the program pretty quickly. So why Bubble? So these are just my reasons. I do not work for Bubble. This is the Simplcare landing page on our Bubble application. And we felt like Bubble handled the complexity and the customization that we needed really well. So we were going to help users track and trend healthy aging metrics, so fill out a report every day on their health and their well-being. So we needed to be able to collect a fairly significant amount of data and visualize that for them. So we needed a little bit more complexity than a standard sort of app that a kind of more restricted no-code tool would give us. I also found I liked it because it was one tool that brings together a lot of sort of no-code kind of mini tools. There's a lot of integrations that you have and a lot of plugins. We felt like it was scalable to a point, and I'll kind of get back to this a little bit later. But for our MVP, we felt like it was going to be able to handle the traffic pretty well and the activities on the app. We liked that it was secure and compliant. So it has GDPR compliance. And so with a full data protection impact assessment that we did, we are also GDPR compliant, which is great and really good for our users. It is not, if you're an American, HIPAA compliant. So we will be migrating or kind of thinking about migrating our backend, which I'll get into a little bit later for that security. And then it also has a lot of strong use cases for startups. So more recently, there was a startup called Teal, and they are a digital career companion, and they just raised $5 million in the US, and their app is on Bubble, which I thought was really cool. So there's a lot of kind of growing use cases that I think we can use to point to for investors when we're looking for investment, where we can say, this is a safe bet. The downside, though, is that there is a fairly steep learning curve. So it's pretty complex because it can do so much. I felt a little bit intimidated, really intimidated, by the sort of blank slate and everything that it could do and how I was going to even start. So that leads me into how to start. So I feel like the hardest part isn't the building. So this is like one kind of big thing that I learned. The hardest part is not the building. It's the planning, it's the process, and figuring out what to build. So if you don't know what you're building, the outcome isn't really going to be very good. So this is kind of a snapshot of our agile process, because everyone loves a framework. This is the one that we sort of created that's based off of, it's got inspiration from the lean startup, so the build, measure, learn cycles, and the Scottish approach to service design, which is the double diamond. So for us, we sort of come in with a hypothesis and a strategy. We test that in co-design sessions. And then we have like 2 build, measure, learn kind of cycles where we're building without the functionalities. We're building kind of the design and testing that out with users. And then we're building in the functionality, and we're testing out the functionality with users before we launch. And then when we launch, we're actually testing the kind of analytics, back-end analytics of what our customers are actually doing. We are very early stage. We launched the MVP in November. So we've been through this cycle twice. So it's going to need refinement. It's going to take time, but we found that it's been helpful for us, at least in building the MVP. Okay, so we've planned out the app, but then how do we build it? Okay, so for me, and I'm speaking really only for myself, I feel like I need to know everything before I dive into something. So I did a lot of training and education on Bubble before I kind of stepped in. I didn't really feel totally capable of just jumping in, experimenting, and then coming out with an app that I would feel comfortable for our customers to use. I really wanted to make sure we were following best practice. And so I used Udemy, I don't know how to say that, Udemy, to take a Bubble bootcamp course. I built like an internal staffing program, which was really cool, but it gave me sort of a low stakes place where I could learn what Bubble was capable of and test that out and not worry about screwing up the app for my customers. I would say that if you're looking at different training and education programs, these no-code tools move really quickly. So you want to get one that's up to date. So this was in 2021. I did one that was in 2019. That was up to date. But with the way that Bubble's progressing, you want to look for something that was built or created in less like 6 months. It's probably something that you're going to want to look at. And this I use to just build up my skill set. So what can I do in Bubble? And then I finished that, and I thought, okay, I still don't know what to do. I still don't feel like I have the best practice behind me of how to approach Bubble for my app, for Smplicare. So I actually used a build program, and Ali, you actually just talked about this, the 100 Days of NoCode. And I used Coaching NoCode Apps, which is in the US, and they are Bubble experts. And they give you, I did the Built to Scale program. And again, I'm not a salesperson for them, I just really liked it. But what they did was they audited our processes. They audited our database. I felt like there was someone who was an expert who said, you did it okay, like that validation, which also helped us for our GDPR compliance because we had this expertise behind us. And they were there when I needed them. So if I submitted a question, they would get back to me. So those were sort of, but they never built it for me. So it was really important to me that I build it myself. But I think if you're considering, doing this for yourself, think about your skill set long term. If you feel like you're going to need that skill set, and if you don't, or if you don't feel like you'll be able to maintain it, and it's not worth the effort to learn, there are tons of vendor services out there. Usually a lot of like developers, like on Twitter and Fiverr and stuff, who are willing to do that for you. They'll hand it over. And then for me, the other gap fill area was in strategy and design. So I took some design courses, trying to understand the agile and lean development process, and then the auditing and testing to make sure that we were kind of doing everything right. Cool. Okay. So, and by doing everything right, I've got like the next few slides are those gap areas where I started to fill some of my knowledge gaps in. So one thing that's been really clear for Simplcare is the importance of design. So our users, our customers are between the ages of 60 and 85 years old. So accessibility and usability is really important. Dark mode is not going to work for these folks. And we have to think about contrast and the way that colors play with each other so that if there's low light issues or visibility issues, that's taken into account. So I'd say when we looked at the design criteria, we drew from best practice, but within our industry and for our audience. So tailoring, like looking at other care organizations and their websites, looking at the government websites, because a lot of those are built for the accessibility, which is great. And then engaging with customers like regularly. So how does this look? Does this make sense? Is it usable? And then joining the design community. So I'm part of the, I forget what it's called, the Healthy Aging Community of Practice, and it's the Design for Aging Challenge. And every month they have an event where we come together and we talk about design. And that could be service design, so like physical design, or websites, and how to design beautiful apps and things like that for an older audience. And that's been really, really helpful because I feel like technology should always reflect the real world. So even if we're talking about service design or how to design a house for the elderly, we should take that into consideration as well for apps. Okay. So the next piece for us that was a big kind of learning curve was how to prioritize which features to build. So we had done all this discovery, and that was great, and we got a lot of awesome feedback, and about a list of 50 to 55 different features that we felt like customers wanted. And we didn't know how to prioritize those. We've done a lot of different methods and a lot of different frameworks. This is the one that's, honestly, is just stuck, so we like it. I don't know if I would say we even love it, but we use it, and it works. So it's the Moscow method, and we feel like it offers us a way to prioritize those features. It's basically putting things into buckets. So your must-have features, should have, could have, and then won't have. And they're all based around usability. So the must-have features are the things that will serve the most important goal for your customers. So if you want a customer to use your app, you need to have a sign-on page. Like those kind of basic things. What are the core features that your user needs to be able to do the work in the app that they want to do? Should have are not time-sensitive things. They won't interfere with testing the core functionality. So you could get this out to users with your must-have features and then explore add-ons and things like that with your should-have and then could-haves. Could-haves, I think about design and things that add on to the user experience and make it that much better, drive efficiency in the app. And then won't-haves, I would caveat that by saying it's won't-have for now. So we always still write them down because we'll do a review of this every time we look at the app and say, is there anything that is in this won't-have column that we feel like needs to move forward? And then this is our Trello board. We use this to prioritize the features, but then I also use it, like if you click onto each one, it's a checklist of everything I need to do in order to actually develop the feature. I'm a little bit of a weirdo about documentation because I feel like if I don't write it down, I will forget it. So I write every single step in detail in there, and I think I drive people crazy, but it works for me. And that leads me to documentation. So this is a very zoomed out view of our customer journey, because I want you to see how crazy it looks when you step back. But when you zoom in, it basically walks you through the customer's journey through our app with screenshots of what they're seeing. And we found this to be really helpful because it identifies for us things that we hadn't maybe considered before. So an example of this, and this is going to sound crazy, maybe, but we hadn't considered that when someone was invited to our app to join a space, that's what we call, our kind of like a Facebook page, like a page, that they might also already be a user. We always had considered them to be someone who was new to Smplicare. And we didn't have a pathway for people who were already users of the app to actually be able to join that page. And that's crazy, but we used this and we figured that out and we were able to kind of build that pathway in for those users and make sure that they were integrated in. I will say though that there is definitely a pitfall of over documentation. So you have to be a little bit careful. You can go too far. And I'm definitely guilty of this. But I think, especially for MVPs and for startups like us, it's just gonna happen. It's like the nature of it. You're gonna create a document and you're gonna think it's great. And you're gonna look at it the next month and you're gonna go, what was I thinking? Or you're gonna start from scratch and you're gonna find that document another week later and you're gonna say, we already did this. We already had it all figured out. So yeah. The other kind of piece that I wanna say about this is that, so this is our customer journey, but we have a number of other different, I call it documentation, but it's really visualizations of the app. So we have a customer journey, we have a product roadmap, we have the prioritization in the Trello board, we have our full kind of privacy and security framework and our full backend framework. And we feel like each one of those visualizations has a different purpose. So when you're thinking about documenting your processes, it doesn't have to all live in one document. It can look different and feel different to suit your needs. Okay. And last but not least, so that was kind of all my journey stuff, but the last time that the last session, someone had a question about whether or not to code. So whether or not they should, I think it was advising clients on whether or not they should code. So I thought I'd share the considerations for us on whether or not we were gonna code. Now, our MVP is built in Bubble, that's the NoCode, but our future app is going to take a blended approach. So it's actually going to have the core innovation, which is our machine learning algorithms. It's going to be built on an AWS platform. It's going to be running in the back end. And then we're going to integrate that into Bubble on the front end to help us iterate quickly with customers. And these are some of the considerations. So thinking about how functional it would be. So no-code tools are great, but there are some limitations with mobile friendliness. So Bubble does not build apps for the App Store, so no native apps, which can be a bit of a struggle. The database structure and flexibility, so when you use a no-code tool, you're locked into their database structure and you're not able to have some flexibility with that. That was important to us. Scalability And what I mean by scalability is the number of actions that are taken or workflows that are taken in Bubble speak that will put strain on the system and cause latency. Our cost versus effort versus value ratio, the compliance and security, which I talked about, so HIPAA compliance for us, our ability to engage with our customers, and then our team skill set. So who do we have on the team that can do this, and how do we maximize our team's strengths so that we can kind of hit our goals? And that is it. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you so much. It feels ridiculous using this in this room, but this is for the people who are joining us, you know, on the sofa at home. So hello, everyone. Does anyone have any questions for Alex to kick us off?
Was it the length of time it took?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Do the thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just the length of time, you know, start to finish.
Yeah.
Idea. I suppose the getting your knowledge up will take time, but
Yeah.
I mean, probably from when you've had your knowledge and then to getting it up and going,
Yeah.
the MVP.
So it was a 9-month process from identifying Bubble as our tool to deploying the app to live, which I feel like is pretty quick. So it was about 3 months of getting up the learning curve. And then we used that build program for 6 months. So to kind of bridge that gap until we launched. And then now I'm on my own. Yeah, so about 9 months. But yeah, we could have done it faster. And now that I know and I'm up the learning curve, I can develop features a lot more quickly. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks. You mentioned at the end about mobile's not an option on Bubble.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I've kind of put it to one side, because
Yeah.
it's an important thing for me. Was that something that during the process you kind of, that came about and thinking about that, or was it something you identified at the
Yeah.
start and thought, we'll work with the limitations and then look at what comes next?
That's exactly right. So we realized that it wasn't going to be mobile friendly. It does have the capability to create a progressive web app. So even though it's not on the App Store, we can still have the icon, and we use Progressier to do that for us. So people can still have the app, and we've got instructions on how to do that for Android or for iPhones, iOS. But our long-term strategy is to bring on a mobile developer and get in the App Store, and that's probably one of the first things that we're going to do. And our goal is to have that built and out by the end of the year. So yeah, it's definitely a consideration. But again, for us, for our customers, because primarily our customers in our age range are using tablets more than phones and more than laptops. So it actually worked pretty well for us.
Is that more for native mobile apps, or is it because you want to use features that exist on those devices as part of, you want to integrate into location or tilt on?
For the tablets?
Yeah, for the mobile development, do you want to be able to use the geo features on a tablet or a phone, or
Yes.
is it just so that it's a native app rather than a?
Yeah, so native app is maybe 20% of the reason, but it's also because we want to integrate. So our long-term goal is to integrate everyday wearables and digital health devices into the platform, and ideally one day integrate into Apple Health itself, and you need to have a mobile app in order to do that.
Thank you.
Cool.
Anyone else? I'd actually like to know about the integration with Fitbits and things. Is that through Bubble, or would that be a code thing, or do you not know?
No, so we actually wanted to integrate Fitbit. I think I might have cut it off of my Moscow screen, but it was one of our actually should have features was to integrate Fitbit into the app, because we thought, well, we can't have the machine learning algorithm yet, but at least we can give people the Fitbit data. But when kind of talking to our data scientists and thinking kind of long term, we actually thought it'd be better to pull Fitbit data into our AWS services and then flow that through Bubble, because we'll have a little bit more control over that and the ability to run our algorithms off of it. So if we took the time to integrate that into Bubble now, it's almost wasted effort because we're going to have to do it again in AWS. So we decided to wait. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I had a question about, do you remember the name of the course that you did? I appreciate that they do move on so quickly.
Yeah, the Udemy course?
Yeah, the Udemy course.
Yeah, it was the Bubble Bootcamp 2019. Okay. And the instructor is fantastic, like absolutely fantastic. He's really active. I'll find his name, because he's really active on the forums, and he's active in Udemy and everything. So, yeah.
I'm asking how much it was as well.
So I got a deal because like Udemy is like really awesome like when you're a first user. So I think it was like £9, but I think it was valued at 50 quid. Yeah, and then the Built to Scale course was $4,500. And then the second installation was like 2,700. Yeah, don't mind, it's on their website, so yeah. Yeah, which for us was worth it because otherwise we'd have to pay someone to do a full audit of the app and yeah, pay for that, so.
Was that through Udemy as well?
No, that was through Coaching NoCode Apps. It's a US-based service that, yeah, does kind of the auditing. It's called the Built to Scale program. Yeah, and that program actually could replace Udemy because they have the full training, but I felt like I really wanted them for their expertise and not just to waste the time in the training. So I did the training then and then utilized their expertise when I sort of knew what I was building.
And actually, just to ask about the program or the kind of support you brought in afterwards, like, did they focus on accessibility much? Because you've talked about it, it's such an important thing. But was that something they could kind of help with?
Oh, so if someone wants to start a business,
Right.
this is what they should do because although they are absolutely fantastic, they are not designers and they don't claim to be. And they don't, like the most kind of feedback, love them on the functionality, but the most feedback I got was this looks great. So it seems like it would be usable. They do host, which was cool, bi-weekly sessions where the entire community from their program can get together and you can showcase the app and then they can give you feedback on it. But it's not best practice usability and accessibility. So if anyone is thinking about that, no code, accessibility and usability specific for Bubble or responsiveness, that is a business, I would pay for that.
Me too, and it doesn't exist. Like,
It doesn't exist.
I was wondering because I've Googled
No.
this as well so many times of trying to find especially a Bubble-specific person who gets accessibility.
Yeah. Really hard to find.
Yeah, someone's got to do it.
Yeah, I read the Nielsen Norman book on web accessibility. That was basically what I did, which Nielsen Norman is fantastic if you ever want to go to their website and check that out. Yeah.
Any other questions? Cool. Okay, well,
Cool.
can we have another round of applause?
Thank you.
And we're going to take maybe a 5-10 minute break, get some of that.